Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us for this COVID-19 CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program webinar. Before I bring in our speaker, I have a couple housekeeping items. Everyone will be muted except for myself and the speaker during the time of the presentation. If you wish to ask questions, please post them in the chat section, which is located at the bottom of the screen. We will take these questions, as many as possible, after the presentation. Also included in the chat section, we have the PowerPoint, a link to the PowerPoint slides. Now, at this time, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Andrew Schwartz. Mr. Schwartz is an attorney with Stein, Sperling, Bennett, DeJong, and Driscoll in Rockville, Maryland. Andrew has a wealth of knowledge and experience in business law and issue, which makes him the perfect candidate to teach. So, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. As Sandy said, my name is Andrew Schwartz. I'm a principal in our business corporate department at Stein Sperling in Rockville, Maryland. I've been monitoring for the last week and a half or so the CARES Act, and specifically the Paycheck Protection Program that was enacted last Friday. I know there's going to be a lot of questions, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. We'll follow together through my PowerPoint, and hopefully everyone is able to see that on the screen. One note is this is evolving. Every day there's been some new information. When the act was first passed last Friday, it said one thing. The SBA has subsequently issued guidance in the last 2 days that in part is a little bit contradictory. So we're waiting for additional guidance. We expect the SBA maybe overnight or tonight, or tomorrow to come out. As many of you know, and we'll talk about it this afternoon, the application timeline, banks are supposed to start taking it tomorrow for small businesses. I've been in contact with a fair amount of bankers at various banks in the area. They still are waiting for additional information and guidance. There's some confusion about applications, but we're going to talk through everything this afternoon. So as I said, on March 27th, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act, was signed into law by the president. In part, there's the Paycheck Protection Program, which deals with small businesses. Many of you and your clients will be able to take advantage of this loan. They've set aside approximately $350 billion for these eligible businesses to take advantage of if they qualify. Generally speaking, it's to help small businesses pay for keeping employees employed, their payroll costs, health insurance premiums, other property insurance, rent, healthcare benefits, utilities, and other expenses to keep your operations going. As I said at the outset, this outline and all of these discussions regarding this new Paycheck Protection Program are subject to revision. Everything I say now may change in a couple hours, so we just have to be aware that it's evolving. And when you have questions, I may not be able to answer everything just because of the evolving nature of the law. So who are the eligible entities? Small business concerns. This means anyone under 500 employees. There's separate potentially available loans for businesses bigger than that. So it's a 500 minimum. Hotels and restaurants are eligible, and there's certain exceptions for them as well based on locations. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals as defined under the SBA. Nonprofit organizations, not all of them, but 501c3 and certain veterans organizations, 501c19, and certain tribal business concerns. So you may or may not have seen, there's been a sample application that's circulating that the Treasury has circulated the other day. I've been told that the initial one that was put up on their website was draft form. A couple days later, and now there's another form that's up there. I've still been told that one is not the official application, although I know many clients have been completing that application. So as part of that, there's certain certifications that need to be made from the borrower, one of which is current economic uncertainty makes the loan necessary to support ongoing operations. That you will use the funds to maintain your payroll and retain workers, to make mortgage payments, leases, and utility payments. Borrower has not and will not receive another loan under this program or the EIDL. I'll get to that later as well. I know you'll have a lot of questions. I've received a lot of questions personally from clients that have already applied for the economic injury disaster loan under the SBA that already came out a couple weeks ago, and how that impacts applying for this Paycheck Protection Program loan. A borrower will also need to certify and provide lender documentation that verifies the number of full-time equivalent employees on their payroll and the dollar amounts of payroll costs, mortgage, rent, and utilities. I will also discuss shortly what's included in payroll costs. As many of you may know, loan forgiveness is a portion of this and one of the hot topic areas, but we'll have to certify, a borrower will need to certify loan forgiveness. And that will be provided for the sum of documented payroll costs, covered mortgage interest payments, rent, and covered utilities, and that all of the information is made knowingly and is true and accurate. One of the important concepts to understand is that you are not required, a borrower is not required to seek credit elsewhere. They can directly apply through their bank. And another point on this, the SBA is not where you apply for these. The SBA is taking applications for the economic injury disaster loan. So how much is your loan amount? The maximum loan amount is the lesser of $10 million or your average total monthly payroll costs from the last 12 months, and that's a point that's been changed, multiplied by 2.5. So it's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs, okay? Special rules exist for seasonal employers in determining your payroll costs. Independent contractors are included in payroll costs, and so are leased employees, but we'll talk about that. Note, however, on the SBA guidance issued earlier this week on March 31st, the materials state that the formula is not 2.5 times, but 2 times the average monthly payroll costs, plus an additional 25% of that amount. So that's contradictory to what the actual act that was passed by the president says. We are waiting for additional guidance right now. We don't know which way it's going to go. Clients and speaking with other experts handling this have said, stick with 2.5 times the monthly average. In fact, the draft application online on the treasury.gov website also says 2.5 times your monthly payroll. The interest rate on this loan is 0.5%. The payment is deferred for the first 6 months, including interest, principal, and fees. However, interest will continue to incur during this time. Let me see, did we miss a few slides? No, we're still good. So on the interest rate, the act also said that it was a maximum interest rate of 4%. So that's also a little bit different. And the loan maturity date is different, which I'll talk about shortly. The principal amount of the Paycheck Protection Program loan is that's not forgiven. So many clients are working and are going to try and have it so that most of the loan, if not all, will be forgiven. And I'll talk about the 8-week time period shortly. But for any portion of the loan that is not forgiven, it will be in 2 years, be due in 2 years from the loan origination. The act had stated that it would be a 10-year loan. So the interest rate has changed and the maturity date has changed. And we're waiting for additional SBA guidance on exactly what it is. But right now, all indications say it's a 0.5 interest rate and a 2-year maturity date. Whoops, sorry. For uses of the loan, the proceeds. So the first determination in figuring out what 2.5 times your monthly payroll is figuring out what's included in your payroll costs. All right. That specifically includes salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation, payment of other cash tips or equivalents, payment for your any accrued leave, vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, depending on how you have it. Certain employers have one bucket of PTO, paid time off. Others continue to have separate vacation, personal, and sick days. Compensation for any severance agreements that may have taken place. Payment for any healthcare benefits, including insurance premiums, retirement benefit, 401k matching, and payment of state and local tax assessments on the individual compensation to an employee, and compensation to sole proprietors and independent contractors. Okay, and that's a little bit confusing, and we'll talk about that. But all of the payroll costs are capped on an individual at 100,000. So if someone makes 150,000, you only count up to 100,000. The 50,000 is excluded for purposes of determining the payroll costs. All right. And you see what's excluded. Like I said, individual employee compensation above 100,000 and certain other compensation to employees whose residence is outside the US. And then also any of the paid sick leave and emergency leave paid under the new expanded Family and Medical Leave Act. So what can the proceeds be used for? Payroll costs, as I said, costs related to continuation of group health care benefits during an individual's sick, medical, or family leave, including insurance premiums, employees' salaries, commissions, and compensation, payments of interest on any mortgage obligations, rent, utilities, and interest on any other debt obligation that were incurred before the covered period. The covered period started February 15th and will extend through June 30th, 2020. So one of the nice things about this loan is the deferral payments. Okay, all the lenders, the SBA lenders that are processing these loans will defer payment of all principal and interest for a period of at least 6 months, but not more than 1 year. So we have a period of 6 months on the loan deferment. Many have you seen that there's other loans available. There are certain state loans available. For in Maryland, I know the state of Maryland has for certain nonprofits and businesses with employers with less than 50 employees. But at the federal level, the SBA recently issued guidance, issued this economic injury disaster loan a couple weeks ago that's already out and available. Those loan terms are slightly different. And we'll get to the specifics on this Paycheck Protection one. This Paycheck Protection one is more favorable loans terms, but the EIDL is already available. One of the nice things is you can apply and within 3 days receive a $10,000 advance that doesn't necessarily need to be paid back. So it's sort of an emergency bridge loan for companies that need that cash right away. And so the question I've been getting, and probably what a lot of you have, is can you apply for both? And what happens if you get both? So the answer is yes, you can apply to both. However, you can't receive loan proceeds from both to be used for the same purpose. For example, payroll costs, utility, and mortgage. So if you receive the EIDL loan proceeds and you apply for the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, you cannot use the loan proceeds from the same. However, you can still apply to both. The other part is the EIDL loan can be refinanced into the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program loan. There is a question on the application, or at least the draft application, that provides and asks for whether you've received other loans. For example, the EIDL one. So an important concept of the Paycheck Protection Program loan is forgiveness. Okay, it's possible that essentially all of the loan could be forgiven if it's used for payroll costs, utilities, and the mortgage for the 8-week period after the loan origination. So I've stated here, a borrower will be eligible for loan forgiveness equal to the amount spent by the borrower during the 8-week period after the origination date of the loan. Now, everyone has also asked, what is the origination date? Is it the date of my application, or is it the date that an individual receives the loan? We've received conflicting information. Banks have advised that it's going to be the date they received the loan. And so those costs can be used for payroll costs and benefits capped at $100,000, interest payments on any mortgage, payment of any rent and utilities. And that's the covered period there, February 15th, 2020. With the loan forgiveness, however, is possible reductions in the amount that you can be forgiven. And so a lot of questions that I'm receiving also from the employment side is, should I be laying off employees now, or should I be cutting their salaries now? Each business is different, okay? And some clients, and I know other companies, have been furloughing their employees, so it allows their employees to obtain unemployment compensation. And now with the federal government adding an additional $600 to the unemployment compensation, employers feel as though their employees can make more money on unemployment. But remember, the goal of this Paycheck Protection Program was to keep people on payroll and keep them employed, and to the extent possible, having the businesses stay operating. So forgiveness reductions, the amount of the Paycheck Protection Program alone will be reduced if there's any reduction in the average number of full-time equivalent employees employed by the borrower during the 8-week measurement period, beginning on the origination of the loan, versus, and the borrower has two options to pick. And it's the average number of full-time employees per month over the 8-week period divided by using a time period of February 15th, 2019 through June 30th, 2019, so a year ago, or more recently, the number of full-time employees divided during this 8-week period now from the loan origination, divided by the average number of full-time employees between January 1st, 2020 to February 29th, 2020. So the loan can be forgiven if you have a reduction in the number of employees, but also if you reduce an individual's compensation by more than 25%. Those are calculations by how much your loan can be forgiven. However, if you rehire employees by June 30th and you reinstate their salary to at least the 75% by June 30th, then the loan can be forgiven. So I've been getting a lot of questions also about what happens if I lay off employees now, get the loan, and then rehire them. Would I receive forgiveness? Potentially, yes. So employees who received compensation of more than $100,000 during the 2019 year are excluded from this calculation. And the rehire restoration exception, what I just mentioned. So a borrower has until June 30th, 2020 to restore their full-time employment and salary levels for any changes made between February 15th and April 26th, which is the 30 days following the loan, the passage of the CARES Act. Also, an important point that was not in the Act, but has been part of the SBA guidance, is that due to high subscriptions rates, it's anticipated that not more than 25% of the forgiven amount may be for non-payroll costs. So they want essentially 75% to be used for payroll costs. The 25% can be used for mortgages, utility, and rent payments. And from a tax perspective, generally when someone forgives a loan, there's cancellation of indebtedness income. For purposes of this Paycheck Protection Program, is deemed not taxable income for federal tax purposes, the portions that are forgiven. On some of the specific loan terms for the Paycheck Protection Program, there is no personal guarantee is required. There's no collateral required. There's no prepayment penalty. and it's non-recourse, meaning an individual member in an LLC, a shareholder, or a partner are not potentially personally liable and won't be held liable by the administrator unless the proceeds are used for fraudulent purposes. Additionally, there's no fees that the borrower is going to have to pay through the SBA. As in a typical SBA loan, there are fees outside of the current COVID-19, but during this period of time, there's no borrower and lender fees. The lenders will be compensated a percentage based on the loan amount through the government. One of the other parts of the loan terms is these loans are not from your bank. So that's one of the reasons why there's no collateral, but they're 100% federally backed by the government. The lenders, the banks that are authorized to provide SBA loans, are essentially just processing the loans. They're not the ones giving the money. So when can you apply? Starting tomorrow, supposedly, April 3rd, small businesses and sole proprietors can apply for and receive loans. And then a week later, April 10th, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can apply for loans. But as I said, at this point in time, after speaking with some of the larger banks in the area who do a lot of SBA loans, they're still waiting for guidance from the Treasury and SBA. Certain banks are coming up with their own applications at this point. They're trying to figure out exactly what documentation is going to be required. And the banks just at this point don't know. It's evolving. So anyone that has questions on the specifics about the application should apply directly through their current bank. I've tried to refer some clients to banks right now, and they're just inundated and they're not taking any new customers. They're frankly focusing on their current customers to help them through this. So stick with your current bank, provided that they're an SBA approved lender. So contact your existing bank first. And while there's approximately $350 billion available and the application deadline is until June 30th, 2020, I've received recent information that they're worried the money could potentially run out by the end of this weekend, within a few days, once the application process formally opens up. So I'm not sure whether they're going to set aside for additional monies for independent contractors and self-employed individuals who have to wait till April 10th to apply. We're waiting on additional guidance for that as well. But everyone I've been talking to is clients and referral sources and accountants like you all. Their clients have the applications prepared. They have been working on gathering the necessary financial documentation that they think the banks are going to accept. And then we're waiting for the floodgates to open essentially tomorrow. So now I'm happy to take any questions. Like I said, I'll do my best to answer the questions, but a lot of the information is changing or may not be available at this time.
Andrew, can you see the chat box there?
No, I'm trying to get it. Let me see if I can find
Well, if not,
it.
let me just read it off to you. I'll just read off the questions for you.
Okay,
How's that sound?
that works.
Okay. Klein is using the PPL loan calculator from AICPA for seasonal business. That calculator looks at March, April, and May 2019 payroll costs, but his payroll in 2019 did not start until March 20. Can he use some other time period?
Yes, so, sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yeah, so my understanding is they potentially can. That's one of the parts that's a little bit up in the air. You know, I also am aware that the time period, even for non-seasonal, has been 12 months now going back, and we may not have Q1 941. So I would provide the most recent 4 quarters of information that is available.
Okay, so I think this answers the next question too. Do we take payroll costs from 1/1/2019 to 12/31 or 4/1/2019 to 3/31/20?
So, right, the information to the extent it's available, I would do 12 months backwards from now, April 1st backwards, if the client or individual has the first quarter 2020 financials available. If not, I would provide then 2019 information. But to the extent we can provide, someone could provide 12 months from April 1st, 2020 back, that's what the recommendation would be.
Okay. Next question. Do we have to submit documents like 941s, articles of incorporation, profit and loss statements now?
So 941s, yes. Payroll information, yes. Anything related to the taxes related to the payroll, yes. I haven't seen anything that you need to provide actual corporate documents, like articles of organization. I know on at least the draft application, there was a blank to fill in the owners and ownership percentage, but I haven't seen any request for specific articles, formation documents, or buy-sell or operating agreements.
Okay. I'll try to, I'm not sure if I'm going to read this right, but maybe you'll get the grasp of the question. If you are an LLC tax as, okay, okay, now I got it. If your LLC is taxed as a C corporation, are you self-employed?
Good question. So for purposes of this, probably not. So typically an LLC, as you all know, is a disregarded entity and flows through to an individual Schedule C. But I think if, I haven't seen any specific guidance on that. That's certainly a good question. But I would, for purposes of a timeline of filing, I would file on the first date, April 3rd, for a small business concern.
Okay.
Versus the self-employed time period.
Next question. If compensation is $99,000, does all the PTO get included and benefits, or the max per employee is $100,000?
Max per employee is $100,000, inclusive of everything. So you would include retirement, leave, and everything up to $100,000. So anything over $100,000 would be excluded for purposes of calculating the payroll costs.
Okay. Does the loan forgiveness count against your credit, potentially lowering your credit score?
I have not seen any guidance that says otherwise. No, I haven't seen anything that says it would be. So I don't believe so.
Does payroll costs include payments to subcontractors when applying for the loan to calculate to 2.5 times?
Yes, so that's one of the areas which is a little bit unclear. My position and recommendation is that payments to independent contractors that would be like an employee is included in determining the payroll costs. However, what's unclear is independent contractors themselves can also apply for this Paycheck Protection Loan. So essentially, it's almost like double dipping. I'm not sure that's what they intended, but for calculating payroll costs, you can, and the recommendation would be include payment to independent contractors. And that, like, to be clear, independent contractors that would otherwise be like an employee, not somebody, an outside, what I call a third-party billing company, or if you issue an attorney a 1099 at the end of the year, that wouldn't necessarily be included.
Okay. What about business that had to shut down because not essential, like a barbershop? Can't bring people back until the ban is up. What will be forgiven if hired as soon as ban is lifted? So,
obviously a barbershop would have to continue to pay rent or mortgage. So those costs would certainly be included, utilities as well. And then even the payroll, if you've kept them on, or if it's likely they probably, filed for unemployment since they were closed, but you could rehire them and use that money to pay them as part of the payroll. And that part during that 8-week period, that should be forgiven.
Okay. This is an interesting question. If we help our clients prepare the application for the PPP program, it is my understanding that we cannot bill the client / applicant for our services. Agent fees will be paid out of the lender fees. The lender will pay the agent. Is the lender under any obligation to pay the agent or a firm submitting the documentation and providing the calculations?
Great question. I saw that same guidance for lenders from the Treasury, and obviously it affects attorneys as well, working with our clients. Candidly, it's up in the air. You know, internally with our firm, we're figuring out what advice we can give and whether we can bill it, or are we not allowed to bill them our time and we have to work with the bank and have some sort of agreement with them. You know, attorneys are a little bit different. I'm not going to be the one preparing an application for them, but providing, you know, guidance and information on eligibility for loans versus maybe one of you maybe completing the application. I would go ahead and what I would say is track your time, keep your time, and bill them. I haven't seen any ethical guidelines come out, whether it's for accountants and CPAs and or attorneys that says immediately stop billing your clients if you're doing this. So keep track of your time. And I think that's one of the things we're still going to have to wait for additional SBA guidance, you know, because you can get in a situation where the bank can say, you know, why do I have any obligation to pay you other than what the guidance has said? So I would, if you're in contact with your client's bank or can get in contact with them, I would try and flesh that out with them and to come to an agreement of a sort.
Okay. Are both PPP and EIDL processed by SBA? A lot of acronyms there.
Yeah, so they're both provided by the SBA. The EIDL loan, economic injury disaster loan, is actually applied through the SBA. If you go to their SBA website, you can apply directly through them. The PPP loan is not necessarily applied through the SBA. It's applied through a bank that is approved to provide SBA loans, and they're the ones processing it.
Okay. You stated the loan forgiveness is not taxable in the federal purpose. Is there going to be a difference in the state level?
I haven't seen anything that says otherwise. So for now, my understanding is it is not taxable, but there may be additional guidance that comes out.
Okay. A small law firm is a general partnership. Its partners are C Corps. Those C Corps pay the partners a W-2. Should the partner's salary be included with the general partnership application, or should the individual C Corps submit their own applications?
I think, so I'm going to make sure I understand. The law firm is a partnership?
The law firm is a general partnership.
Yeah, the general partnership should be the one that applies for the loan, and then as part of the payroll costs for determining the loan amount, it should include their salaries up to $100,000.
Okay. In calculating the average payroll cost, we have to exclude wages over $100,000. In the case of a company with a simple IRA, do we have to exclude the 3% employer match on the amount in excess of the 100K?
Yes, anything over 100,000 is excluded. So you would take the total compensation package for an individual employee, health, leave, retirement benefits, and cap it at 100,000. Anything over that is excluded.
Okay. Are there any related party issues? Can a one-person shareholder S Corp with salary utilize this program?
Yes. In fact, I have a fair amount of clients that are single member LLCs and sole shareholder companies that could take advantage of it.
Okay. Does the payroll cost include employer portion of the Social Security?
I believe it does.
Okay. Okay. What about those that don't issue 1099 since their LLC is taxed as a C Corp? Include those?
Is that?
Okay,
An employer,
let me just
yeah,
finish the question. I'm sorry, Andrea.
yep,
I had to scroll down a little bit. My client plans to continue to pay his employees during the shutdown when they are not working. Is this still considered payroll for forgiveness? So that was
yes,
the question. Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm not sure. CAMICO, Chemico, told me this morning I'm not covered under malpractice if I sign the PPP form as an agent, but I'm covered if I bill them directly. So it sounds like his insurance company is telling him that he's not covered under his malpractice if he goes to the PPP, but because of the agent, but if he
Right.
client directly, he's covered. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think that's one of the things that's a tricky and really unknown area. I mean, obviously they issued guidance on what an agent means. They were pretty clear about that, but it's no one knows, how to bill a client at this point and how we get, if we don't bill a client, how we get paid from the bank. Like I said, I would bill the client for now, and maybe over the night and in the next couple of days, they issue additional guidance on that. Whether there's some sort of business association agreement between any of us and a bank that, further explains the relationship in payment and compensation. So for now, I'd say bill the client, and then we go from there.
Andrew, I know we received a written question prior to the event. Did
Yes.
you address that in your presentation?
Yes, and I can address it again. It dealt with independent contractors and whether they're included for determining payroll costs. And so the recommendation is, yes, include the compensation wages paid to independent contractors up to 100,000 in the determination of payroll costs.
Okay, so it's currently, and Andrew, I don't know what your time is. It's 3:34. It looks like we have like 19 more questions. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Okay, I just want to, not sure about your time.
No, that's fine.
Okay, can employers lay off employees and bring them back after they receive the loan money to pay them and get relief from repayment, or must they remain on the payment without getting laid off?
So yes, they can lay them off, but in order to be able to take advantage of the forgiveness, they must have rehired them by June 30th.
Okay. All right. We're going back to the AICPA calculator question. Back to the seasonal employer. Per the AICPA calculator, it looks like only 12 weeks of payroll, not 12 months of payroll, is used to calculate the maximum loan. Can we use April, May, and June 2019 instead of March, April, May per the calculator? Does SBA have examples of this calculation?
So I have not seen the AICPA calculator, and I haven't seen any examples by the SBA for seasonal employers. The only kind of formula and calculation I've seen is, the 2.5 times, and then also the 2 times plus 25%, and then also how they take care of reductions and forgiveness. I haven't seen anything related to the seasonal employers.
Okay. If a business receives a PPP loan, can the business also receive the employee retention credit for Social Security tax paid by the employer?
I think, if I'm correct, they cannot. But I would need to have to double check that. I thought I saw somewhere that if they get this loan, if I remember correctly, that they wouldn't be able to. But don't, quote me on that. I think that's what I had read.
Okay. What if the business, such a real estate holding entity with rental income from tenants, does not have payroll costs? Are they not able to apply since the loan is calculated solely based on payroll?
That's a good question. I saw somewhere in the CARES Act as a whole, which is the Paycheck Protection is just one subset of it, that there was specifics related to the real estate industry. I have not candidly focused enough on that particular part, but I think there are financial assistance related to real estate.
Okay.
But also, it's possible that I would have that person speak with their bank directly because, a portion of the proceeds are to be used for paying mortgages and rent and utilities.
Right.
So just because the application does say, 2.5 times monthly payroll on the one hand, but then it allows you to use the proceeds for these other things. So it's a little bit up in the air for that.
The next one's a good question. Is it legal to get the PPP loan, the Maryland Relief Loan, and the Maryland Grant?
Yes, if you qualify for both the Maryland loan and Maryland grant, I have not seen anything that says you can't apply and receive the loan for the PPP. What I've seen is related to the EIDL and the PPP.
Okay. What about a law firm partnership where partners do not get a W-2, they only get a profit distribution? Do we include their income up to $100,000 for each partner?
Yes, up to $100,000 for each partner. That would be wages and distributions made to them.
Okay.
Or compensation made to them.
Okay. I have a 501c3 religious organization with 2 separate EIN numbers, but the same ownership. Is this application for both entities combined?
I had read that there can be one loan per tax ID. So it's possible that they may be able to apply for 2 different loans because there's 2 tax IDs.
Yep. The 1099 question is client, okay. The 1099 question is client doesn't issue a 1099 for a bookkeeper since the bookkeeper is taxed as a C Corp. Can they include that in wages for calculation and forgiveness?
Can you read that again for me, please?
Sure, I'll try to. The 1099 question is client doesn't issue a 1099 for bookkeeper since the bookkeeper is taxed as a C Corp. Can they include that in wages for the calculation and forgiveness?
Yes. So whatever is paid to that bookkeeper can be included up to $100,000.
Okay. Oh, I just went a little bit too fast. Okay. I have a single member LLC. Since there is no payroll, even though operating expenses need to be covered. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Would a single member LLC qualify since there's no payroll, even though operating expenses need to be covered?
Right, but I would think that individual owner, the member, single member, takes compensation and distribution. So what they take would be included in the payroll costs up to $100,000.
The next question is one that I was actually thinking about. I heard initially the applications had to be taken to the bank. However, most of the banks are closed and only the drive-through is open. Because of that, the banks are planning to set up an online version? Question?
Right. I've heard that they are working on online versions. I think the last thing they want is God knows how many hundreds of people lined up outside the banks at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So my understanding is they're working on having an online process.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the social distancing.
Right.
How's that going to come in effect? Yeah.
Exactly.
If you are self-employed and you get unemployment, does it affect this in any way?
I do not believe it does.
Okay. I want to be clear. What exactly papers does your client need to bring to the bank tomorrow to apply?
So the information I've seen is information, 940s, 941s, payroll records, anything related to payment for benefits, whether it's accrued leave, retirement benefits, and payments to independent contractors.
Okay. How do you prove that net earnings from a self-employed for the calculating the payroll costs? Do we use the P&L from the company?
You can use that.
Okay.
And I think, as I've said, each bank is possibly preparing their own application and is going to have their own checklist of required documentation. You would like to think it would be somewhat uniform. there may be obviously overlap on the financials, but some banks may require a little bit less or a little bit more than others.
Okay. Does the same 100K max per employee that is applied in calculating the average payroll cost apply to the qualifying cost for the forgiveness of the loan?
So I don't, if I understood the question correctly, there's a $100,000 cap for determining the payroll costs. On the forgiveness part, someone that makes 100,000 is just taken out altogether,
Okay.
not included at all.
Okay. Can S corporation distributions be considered payroll for PPP purposes?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Can 3 part-time employees be counted as just 2 full-time employees? That is what their hours add up to be.
So my understanding, and there's some disagreement on how the part-time people are included. What I've read and understood in talking with some others is that each of them can be included separately for their payroll costs. You don't have to add them up.
Okay. Here's another good question. If the application has not been finalized, how can people apply tomorrow?
That's a great question. And I can tell you from just personal experience, clients that have submitted stuff and copied me on emails to their banker, the banker has responded and said, thank you very much, but the application online is not what we're going to accept. We're working on developing our own application. So, who really knows if tomorrow's going to be the day that's everything's going to be available? Like I said, the bankers really still have no idea from their processes. They're trying to figure this out, right now. And so, yeah, I don't know if they're going to have a completely different application than what is on the SBA Treasury website or what.
Okay. The next 2 questions I'm going to put together because they sort of are together. Is it correct that the 501c7 and the 501c5, are they eligible or they cannot apply for the PPL loan?
My understanding is go ahead.
Sorry. Client has a social club in DC, but they are not allowed to open and are still paying employees.
My understanding is that they cannot apply. Only a 501c3 and I think C19 veterans organization is eligible to apply.
Right. Now it's my understanding, Andrew, because we're a 501c6. There is a huge campaign against the legislators to try to get that changed. And
Sure.
They just said to keep posted on it because, being part of that association world, that there is a huge campaign going on concerning that. So
yes,
that's just a side note.
Absolutely. Yep.
Is the retirement benefit to be counted in payroll costs anything contributed by the employer? Let me read that again.
Yeah.
The retirement benefit to be counted in payroll costs, anything contributed by the employer?
So yes, that I would say that in determining the payroll costs, retirement benefits paid would be.
Okay.
But remember that's added in with the rest of the compensation capped at 100,000.
Right. Okay, this is from one of the attendees. PNC said online, and they need to have an online login to participate. So thank you, Carrie, for the information. Do you need the actual bills for health insurance and retirement or just a general ledger showing the detail?
I think a general ledger to start will be sufficient, but I would tell you go ahead and have the backup ready. You want to have as much documentation available at the time when you have the application so that they're not, wasting time reviewing and saying, go get this, and you're taking a couple days to get it. So to the extent you can have as much supporting documentation available at the time you submit the application would be the recommendation.
Just need a clarification here. It sounds like only interest on the loan is forgiven and the principal is due in 2 years. Is that correct?
No, my understanding is the full amount of the loan, that proceeds you receive, is forgiven if it's used in the 8 weeks following the loan for those specific things: payroll, utilities, and rent and mortgage.
And I know you probably won't know this answer, Andrew, but I'll ask it anyway. Any idea on the time frame for the receipt of the loan proceeds?
Right. I don't know that at this time.
Yeah, I was going to say you would
Yeah.
be in if you knew.
Right. Exactly. I wish I did.
Okay. If they reduce pay to 100K, can they then be included in the forgiveness? So if you reduce
Yeah.
down to 100K, can they
As
be?
long as it's not more than 25%. As long as that person's salary is not reduced by taking them down to 100,000 is not reducing it by more than 25%.
Okay. In addition to payroll records, does the bank need to see rental contracts, utility bills, note or mortgage payment proof?
So I haven't seen any guidance on that type of specific documentation at this time.
Okay, back to self-employed who's receiving unemployment. It seems to me you would have to stop unemployment on 6/30. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that question again?
It says back to the self-employed who is receiving unemployment. It seems to me that you would have to stop the unemployment on June 30th.
Yeah, potentially to rehire you in order to have that loan forgiven. But that's where, you know, there's going to need to be some additional guidance. Because if you don't have a job, in order to get forgiven the loan and rehire yourself, that's not going to fly. That's not going to work. So I think that's where there needs to be additional guidance.
Okay. Back to the previous question about full-time employee was for the number of jobs on the application. So it was concerning the number of jobs on the application. Remember that was the question. They have 3 part-times. Can they qualify as 2 full-times?
And she's saying the application is asking for the number of jobs?
Jobs, yes.
I haven't seen that specific. I don't want to answer that without specifically looking at it.
Okay. Are the employer portion of Social Security, Medicare, FUTA, and SUTA counted towards payroll costs?
My understanding is yes, they are.
And last but not least, we made it through, Andrew. Here it goes. PNC is the only bank I see with the PPP process advertised on their website. I guess, have you seen any other banks, Andrew?
Yeah, Capital One has. They have a link up. M&T Bank, Santander Bank, Eagle Bank. I don't know that if they all have, I haven't seen each of their websites, but I've talked with some bankers at each of them, and they are now putting out generic emails to their customers that says, we understand, you all have a ton of questions. We're still waiting on some additional information. We promise to answer you. So I don't know if they each have advertisement, but any of the banks that are SBA approved are the ones that are processing. So that doesn't necessarily mean every bank. Some of the smaller ones may not be SBA approved.
Right.
But I would confirm with your bank number one whether they are SBA approved and able to process this, even if you don't see something online about it.
Okay. And Bruce Angevine just stated that Sandy Spring Bank also offers it. Thank you, Bruce. So another question just popped up. Can 1099 miscellaneous subs be added to this amount PPP, on the PPP?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. For those who did not get to download the slides, I'm going to go way back to the beginning of the chat, and right there is the website or the URL where you can download the slides. It's showing right now on the screen. Andrew, I cannot thank you enough so much for your time today. You took the time to answer everyone's questions, which it was a menu full of questions. So Andrew, would you like to give out your information?
Sure.
To the audience in case they have a follow-up question or they need assistance? I know you guys would be happy to help.
Yes, feel free to call me, email me. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. You can write my direct phone number down. It's 301-838-3327. That rings directly to me. And my email I'm not sure if you can see it on the PowerPoint, but it's A Schwartz, SCHWARTZ at Stein, STEIN, Sperling, SP as in Paul, ERLING.com. So A Schwartz at steinsperling.com. And I'd be happy to try and answer your questions, strategize and talk through. I know we're all going through this together. We're all learning and trying to grasp it. But I will tell you, I'm sure there's going to be additional changes and new information that comes out either today or over the next several days.
Right. And Andrew, if you do see that new application that's not in the draft form, can you please shoot it over to me, and I will definitely get it posted up
Yes.
on our Facebook page, as well as all of our other social medias, so that the people can have it, like you said. And it's concerning that this application process starts tomorrow, and from what you said, the money could be gone by Sunday. Where does that leave the self-employed come April 10th? So,
Exactly. So
huge concern. So
yeah, in addition to the application, if there's additional SBA guidance, I'll share that with you as well.
Wonderful. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. And for all those who are out in the internet world, thank you for joining us. We really, truly appreciate you as a member, and we're hoping they continue to do these type of webinars for our membership in the future. And I want everyone to have a great day. Be safe, wash those hands, and keep that social distance. We will make it through this whole process. We are strong. We will be successful. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.